In this video, we're going to take a look at your actual project setup. So we're going to navigate to the projects module, and you can access projects from either the all tab or the setup tab. You'll see it in both. And as always with Intacct, if you see the little plus button on the menu, you can hit that to add directly from there. Or if you click on the name, it's going to bring you into your list of projects and you can add from that screen. So when I get in here, then I'll see my projects that are existing, and I have the option to do an import or create or export. So if I was creating just one project, I would just click create. But for you, if you're bringing in all of your projects and you have several, you're more than likely going to do that through the import function. So if you click the import button, you have the option to do CSV import, and you don't have the option to download the actual template from here, but here is where you can do the import itself. So to get the template for that, you're going to go to your dropdown, company module, setup tab, import data. And then in here, we're going to do Control F on our keyboards, type in project, and it's going to bring us down to the project section. And here on projects is where you'll download that template to get in your projects list. And, as always, when you're downloading those templates from Intacct, I recommend going through and highlighting all of the areas that are required to make sure that you're not missing any of those columns, because you're just going to get errors when you try to do your import if you are missing the required fields. When you do your import, then you can do it through the company setup checklist, or you can do it back in the project screen. So if I go back to projects, then click in here, I would do my import through this button, but I am at top level right now, and where you bring in your projects import is important. So if you're going to have projects that are shared across your entities, then you can bring them in at top level, but more often than not, people are going to be bringing them in at entity level. So I'm going to click down into my entity level, my Shannon GC, and it's going to actually bring me straight into my project screen because I just clicked the button from where I was in the top level. And here's where I would do that import. So depending on where you want those projects to live, if you want them to be top level or entity level, that's where you're going to do your import. So now I'm at my entity level. I'm going to hit the create button to show you the fields that you can put into a project. So I'm going to click on create, and anything with a red asterisk is required. But there are also other fields that we highly, highly recommend that you fill in when you're doing your project setup. So your project ID, if you turned off your sequencing in the configuration, then this is going to be a field that you'll have to manually put in. If you left on sequencing, obviously Intacct creates that number for you. You don't have to put it in, and you will have your own numbering structure for your projects. Typically, we see something like the 2-digit year and then numbers after that. So I'm just going to do 26115 for my project ID. Once this is saved, that is a locked field. It cannot be changed. Project name then also is required. Do not use special characters in your project names or anything related to your projects, basically. So any naming that you're doing in Intacct, don't use special characters. The system doesn't handle them very well, so we highly, highly recommend that you don't use them. Keep your naming very simple and no special characters. And I'm just going to call this ABC Hotel. Project category, then you have a couple of different options here. Contract, capitalized, internal, non-billable, internal, billable. If you need to use these other options, go ahead, but more often than not, it's going to be contract. Project types, we looked at in another video. So whatever ones you have set up for your company that makes sense for you, you should have them in a list here. And we're going to select whatever one is applicable to this project. And for me, it's going to be hotel. If you want to enter in a description, you can go ahead and do that. Customer is required if you want to bill against this project. So I'm going to select Nighthawk Developers here. It's also important that when you're selecting the customer, this is not something that you're going to want to change down the line, because once you have your project set up, everything's going to be linked to this customer that you set up here. So your project contract lines, your estimate lines, all of that information is going to be linked to this particular customer. So if you change that halfway through, it's going to be a bit of a nightmare. So we don't recommend changing the customer on a project. If at all possible, avoid changing the customer midway through a project. But you are going to want to put one on if you want to bill out to the customer. Begin date is important as well, because your dates for your project contract, your lines, etc., are going to flow from here. So it's important to put a begin date on your project. And I'm going to put it as the first of the year. End date, not as important. If you want that for your own records, do obviously put that in. Parent project then. So let's say you have sub projects like phases or something like that, and you wanted to make this a sub of another project. Here is where you would say the parent project that this project is associated with. And then if you wanted to invoice with the parent, there's an option to choose that as well. Project status, we looked at in another video as well, where you can put certain controls on for your projects. And for this particular project, I'm just going to choose active. You obviously will have your own statuses, so choose the one that is applicable. And then this is a status within Intacct. This is simply just active and inactive, which is going to make it show up on reports or not. So we're going to keep it as active. And then this include projects in WIP schedule is not an actual clickable field. You are going to have to go to the WIP management tool and add the project there for it to check off. It's not something, you don't actually click it here for it to add to WIP schedules. Once you've added it within the tool, then it will be marked off. MBA and warehouse name are custom fields that I have in for my projects. So wherever you need additional information for whatever it is that you're putting into Intacct, you can use custom fields to get that information onto the screen. And warehouse name and MBA are an example of ones that I have in. You could also maybe do tax exempt, like is this the tax exempt job? I want to have a checkbox for that. Maybe you want to put in a line for your retainage percentage that you're holding across the project, different things like that. And we will have a video that shows you how to get those custom fields set up. In the dimensions section then, location is really important. You are going to want to have a location tagged for all of your projects. And I'm going to do my E100, which is the entity that I'm in. If you have departments, you can tag that as well. And I'm going to do my construction operations. And if you're using class and you need class to be coded on your projects, then you can also default that in there. Contacts then, primary contact, ship to contact, bill to contact. If you need to pull them onto document templates or whatever that is associated with your project, you can put those in here. And then people, you have project managers maybe that you want to assign. So I'm going to say this project is Jose Garcia's. And then if you have external user, customer, or sales contact, you can put them in here as well. Scope and schedule, then just different fields that you can use. If you need to put in that information, please feel free to go ahead and do that. And then project address is another custom field that I have in here, just for my job address. We see people using this a lot. And, you know, like I said, we'll have another video on custom fields, getting them set up. That is something that most people are going to want to have on their project setup screen. And if there's any fields here that, you know, you wanted to look at in more detail, you can always click help and support, help on this page. It brings you to the help page that is specific to this screen, and it goes through all of the different fields that are here. On my additional information field, then we're going to take a look at the billing section. And here we do want to put in terms for our customer. So let's say they're net 60 or whatever it is. You're going to want to choose that there. And then billing type is important, especially if you are using time and material, doing time and material out of the system. So if your billing type is time and material, you want to make sure that you select that here for it to work correctly in the generate invoices screen. And if you're doing time and material, you're probably going to want to check off these default expenses and entries to billable so that anything that goes in and gets coded to that project is going to automatically check off as billable. It just makes your life easier that you don't have to do it. Other options then, fixed fee or fixed fee and expenses. So let's say you're doing fixed fee or fixed fee and expenses. You don't actually have to put the contract amount in here because that's going to pull from your project contract. Here on your documents section, then anything that you want to fill in here, if it's something that you require, go ahead. You can drag in an attachment as well. and business rules as well. Not going to go into that in this series, but you can look at our YouTube to find videos on that. And then these are just additional tabs that you can turn on in the configuration screen, which have information related to this project once it's ongoing and you have transactions against it. So for setting up your project, you definitely want to make sure that you have, everything with the red asterisk obviously is required. You definitely want a customer, a begin date, your location. More than likely, you're going to want a project manager. And then on your additional info screen, your terms and your billing type are important as well. So once you have all of your information on the screen, you can hit save, but most likely you're going to be doing a import for your projects if you have several to bring in. And like I said, you can go to company, set up import data to download the template for that. And I believe that they have an example on that template as well to show you what you need to fill in order to get those projects in. And then when you do get to the point where you have all the project information on your template and you want to import it, make sure you're at the right level when you're doing that import. So are you going to do it from top level, or are you going to come down to your entity and do the import from there?